This show is brought to you by Loud and Opinionated.
We're in the third quarter of our rec league basketball game last weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on the bench, and Brandon was playing, and I'm on the bench, and this huge dude walks in and sits like 2 rows behind me and goes, "Hey, bruh, you know if Nathan's here?" And I've never seen this guy before in my life, but he looks familiar, and I'm like, no, which game are you here for? He said he's here for the 4 o'clock game, and that was the game that was next after us, and I think harder about it, and I'm like, oh my god, that's Cameron Lard, Iowa State power forward. Somebody had Cameron Lard come play on their men's league basketball team that we're playing them next week. We're playing the team that has Cameron Lard next week.
What's your record right now?
We're 1-3.
Oh boy.
We should, it's on us. I'm not gonna make excuses, but I'm gonna chalk it up to inexperience. I was playing as a team. We lost by 2 on Sunday. It was a tie game with like 15 seconds to go. We lost by 2, and we should have won week 1. We're very close to being 3-1, but we're 1-3 with a lot of room for upside. We'll see how we do against a Division I basketball player next week.
Yeah, that's really gonna test your mettle, huh?
Yeah. I'm excited and nervous for it. But welcome to the Loud Sports Podcast. Let's focus on some happier Iowa State stuff, like who got drafted. I'm Paul Rubidoux here with Jake Williams. Brandon's off this week. We finished up DMAC for the semester, and he's out of town on a vacation after college, and he'll be back soon. But without him, we're going to do our best to break down the Iowa people that were drafted.
I notice how you said Iowa, because no Husker player got drafted.
Yep, no Husker player got drafted. We'll dive into that a little bit. But let's just start at the top. Round 1, 8th pick to the Lions, T.J. Hawkinson. I thought this was kind of interesting because Noah Fant was supposed to be the number 1 pick from the Hawkeyes tight end until about 2 months ago. All throughout the season and into the postseason of college football, I was hearing a lot of Hawkinson is the better all-around tight end, the better blocker, but Fant is the better athlete, and Fant was projected to go higher, even though Hawk was going to win the awards. And now that's kind of flipped.
Well, I don't... It's interesting because when I look at Hawkinson, with talking to you, I thought that Fant was going to go 10th because I thought he would go to the Packers, which would give Aaron Rodgers some support and, give him some weapons. And to me, him going to the Lions, I could understand that as well because it gives Matt Stafford some help. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you. I thought that from what I saw, I thought Fant was the more athletic tight end, and I thought he would be the bigger pick. For what it's worth, if it were me, I would take him personally. I would have
take Fant.
Yeah, because from what they're both great players, but I think Fant is more athletic and the overall better player.
Yeah, well, for Hawkinson, I've always been a big Matt Stafford fan. I think that
That's weird.
I think that he could have been a Hall of Fame quarterback if he had been drafted into the right situation. I think that he has been a top 10 quarterback over the entirety of his career. And, I see this as the Lions are entering the hospice stage of Matt Stafford's career.
Hospice.
Yep, they're not trying to win. What are you? If you have the defensive struggles that the Lions have had and you spend the number 8 pick on a tight end, are you really trying to compete or are you trying to make your quarterback happy and comfortable? He has
to make him comfortable.
It's hospice. It's hospice. He's in his 30s. He probably has one more contract after this one. This is his mega contract, and the Lions are just kind of giving him gifts, keeping him comfortable.
But they've been doing this for a while. They've been drafting offensive players for a while. They've I think it was 3 years in a row they drafted a wide receiver.
Really, honestly, I think Hawk is a great talent, but I don't like this pick because Eric Ebron was a Lions top pick a few years ago, and they just didn't insert him into the offense, and now he's flourishing in Indianapolis, but he just wasn't getting it done, and I don't know if that's a production or a scheme thing, and maybe we'll see Hawkinson possibly, the best case scenario, Hawkinson becomes a poor man's Gronkowski in, what's their name? Their new head coach, the Patriots disciple.
Oh, Matt Patricia.
Matt Patricia. I was thinking Pat. Yeah. So hopefully that's what happens for Hawk, but I don't see this improving the Lions team as much as I see it improving Matt Stafford's game-to-game help. He has a security blanket tight end now.
Yeah.
Basically all this pick is.
And I can see him being a red zone threat. I mean, that's pretty much what he was with Iowa. I mean, Fant was the more athletic, deep threat, vertical guy, and Hawkinson was the guy that you could dump it to on 3rd and short. You know, what Iowa likes to do a lot is he's the short yardage kind of player. But I agree with you. If I were the Lions, I would have taken really any defensive player, especially with a coach like Matt Patricia,
right?
Who's all about defense. He's
exactly.
a defensive coordinator, and yeah, this pick I feel like isn't a Patricia choice. I think this is an ownership choice. So I can understand where you're coming from, where they're trying to just appease Matt Stafford and I guess the hospice stage of his career.
The hospice of Matt Stafford's career.
I love how the metaphor is he's dying.
His career is dying.
His
Welcome
career
to the Lions.
Yes.
This is what happens.
They grind you out.
You get to 30, it's done.
Now, we talk about Noah Fant. I think him going 20th to the Broncos is a little surprising to me.
I think the Packers would have picked him if he would have been there with their second pick of the first round.
Why didn't they go for them first, do you think?
Because, well, we'll get into this a little later with our local team coverage. The Packers, the last 2 drafts with their new GM, they've really focused on speed and defense. And that's where the focus was this draft. But I really, honestly, I think they would have taken Fant if he would have been there. I like Fant. I think he is a good vertical threat. He would be the best athlete the Packers have had since Jermichael Finley, because Jimmy Graham is a shell of what he was in New Orleans. I like this pick. They took him, I heard, because they knew that they could get Drew Lock, the quarterback that the Broncos wanted. They knew they could get him in the second round with their second-round pick based on what was going on. So they took Fant, and I like Fant going here because their quarterback right now is Joe Flacco. Nobody throws that deep ball like Joe Flacco.
I mean, when you have an elite quarterback like Joe Flacco.
Elite at getting pass interference calls.
Just as many rings as Aaron Rodgers.
I still don't see them winning anything in the AFC West, even making the playoffs. Still.
Whatever. I mean, well, yeah, they can't because, I mean, the AFC West has the Chargers and the Chiefs, so they're both very, very good teams. I do agree this is a good pick. I think with the Drew Lock pick, I think it's a good decision. Oh, look at that Lock pick. A little pun there. Unintentional. But with getting Drew Lock and then having Noah Fant, I think they're doing the right thing and building their offense for the future because their defense has carried them in the last, 4 or 5 seasons and won them a Super Bowl even. Granted, that's not the same team from Super Bowl 50, but yeah, I think this is a smart move to get 2 young guys that are very athletic, very capable guys, and build for the future. Because you have Joe Flacco, was it a 3-year deal? I think they made him sign.
I'm not sure.
I'm not quite sure on the deal, but you don't have him very much longer. So he'll be there to mentor Drew Lock, and in the meantime, he can throw it to Noah Fant.
Mm-hmm. Now moving down to the 3rd round. Next, we have 2 Cyclones. David Montgomery went to the Bears with the 73rd pick. And, oh, man, I love this pick from fit, style, everything except that I am a Packer fan. That's the only reason I don't like this pick.
My issues with this is Jordan Howard is still a young back. This will be his 3rd year. And when we talked about this before, my thing is if you get a guy like Montgomery, if this might be the Bears' mentality, but if you get a guy like Montgomery, he is going to be your third down back. He's going to be a short yardage guy, I think. He has speed to be a starting running back, but I don't know how I feel about this pick when you have Jordan Howard already. It's good support if Jordan Howard gets hurt. I understand that, but I feel like David Montgomery is a kind of back that would go. I'm just saying it because I'm a Buccaneers fan. I wish they would have got him. No, I just think he could. I don't hate the pick by the Bears, but I'm just kind of surprised because of Jordan Howard.
Yeah, well,
you know what I'm saying?
From what I was reading, I think that they're trying to replace Jordan Howard. He's not explosive. Not that Montgomery is overly explosive, but Howard is not hitting the hole with enthusiasm from what I was reading. And they want a guy who is an effort guy, like what you see from Montgomery. And I think that Montgomery is going to just slide right into that Jordan Howard role alongside Tariq Cohen, who is their shifty change of pace back. And it's going to be a really good backfield. Honestly, I see him as he could be the best running back in the NFC North since Adrian Peterson. I see a lot of Peterson in him because he's bounce-erific. Defenders, it takes 2 or 3 guys to bring him down. He's always efforting. He falls forward to get an extra yard. Every time. He's one of those backs that knows how to fall forward. And I think that this was the steal of the draft.
How I feel about it, you mentioned other teams in the NFC North. I think the Lions could have benefited from getting a guy like Dave Montgomery because they don't really have a back. And you could argue that they haven't, that they're not a running team, but you talk about Matt Stafford being in his hospice of his career. What better way to help him than giving him a security blanket? So I think the pick to me isn't bad for the Bears, but I think the Lions missed an opportunity. If you look at other teams in the NFC North, and somebody could say that a guy like him is a dime a dozen, but I think he's still a good pick. And I agree that I don't hate the Bears' choice, and if they want to make him the number one guy, I don't see why. And he fits the mold of a Chicago Bears running back.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Chicago Bears style. So I don't hate the pick.
Yeah, well, down in the 4th round, we had 3 people from the state of Iowa taken. First was Hakeem Butler, the 103rd pick. I was surprised he fell to the 3rd day, honestly.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I think there's a huge mistake by every team that passed on him.
Absolutely. Every 3rd round pick. Maybe let's kind of.
I honestly could have seen him as a 2nd rounder. To be quite honest,
I'm not disagreeing. I think he has that level of talent and size. His size is incredible.
Personally, I would have even taken him late in the 1st round. If I had an extra pick late in the 1st round, I would have taken him.
Well, the Patriots with the 32nd pick, they took a receiver. So we'll see, and we can compare careers in a year or two, see how their rookie year goes. But I'm not surprised by this pick. It seems like Cliff Kingsbury wants to pick up guys that beat him in the Big 12 and got him fired. Between Kyler Murray and Hakeem Butler, he's picking up the players that he lost to.
And, we were talking about this earlier. I think it's a brilliant move by the Cardinals because you're getting maybe 2 more years out of Larry Fitzgerald, if that. And
you stole my tape.
Oh, I was seeing next Fitzgerald.
I
just see it on the paper. Sorry, but I think. Fine, I'll let you elaborate on this. I'll go back on another thing I was going to say. I love the idea that they are building, and it's this is what the draft's all about. It's building the future. What Cliff Kingsbury is doing here is smart by getting Kyler Murray and Hakeem Butler, getting these 2 guys who are going to come in at the same time. They're going to build a reputation, a repertoire with each other, and I think it's only going to make their chemistry better and make them play better for the Cardinals.
I agree with that. Yeah, and what you were saying, Jake, that we talked about earlier, you're right that Larry Fitzgerald's career is almost over, and so what do? You go out and you draft a 6'6" athletic freak that can jump ball over everybody, and that's what they did. And so he has a year to kind of study Larry Fitzgerald, who I think is one of the best route running and footwork receivers in NFL history, to really grow into himself before he has to become a number one receiver, which I believe he will be the number one receiver in the NFL.
And I think, you have David Johnson, you have Kyler Murray, you have Hakeem Butler, you still have Larry Fitzgerald. So there's no reason why the Cardinals shouldn't have a very explosive offense, other than obviously injuries. But in an NFC West, when
their line was horrible, though. I mean, Rosen had no time to throw the ball. So if they don't fix the line, I don't see much improvement this year.
And they have to see a lot of production out of, if they want to start him soon enough, they got to see quick production out of, Kyler and Hakeem, because they're going against, again, one of the best defenses in the league twice a year with the Rams. I mean, that's what they got to go through. The road through the NFC West goes through Los Angeles, and I think they got the pieces in the right place. It's just they do have to be very productive because the Rams' strength is their secondary.
There's going to be a lot of snowbirds in Arizona from Iowa with Cardinals jerseys between David Johnson and Hakeem Butler next year. Next, 2 more Hawkeyes got taken in the 4th round. Anthony Nelson, defensive end, went to the Bucs, and Amani Hooker went to the Titans. This is where we need Brandon.
Yeah.
I don't really have too much to say on these guys because, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really deep dive into the Hawkeyes roster.
I like the Buccaneers' choice with Nelson because, you make the joke that Tampa loves Iowa defensive ends. I think it just adds to, if you look at Tampa's, and we'll get there in a minute, but if you look at how Tampa drafted, they figured out what really worked for them. When they had Adam Humphries, I think they utilized him well enough, and a short, stocky slot receiver, and that's what they went for in the draft with the receiver from Bowling Green. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But I'm noticing that they're moving in a younger direction and building a strong defense for Todd Bowles, who he may not have been a good head coach, but he's one of those guys that's a really, really solid coordinator, not a great head coach. And I think Todd Bowles really got in his reputation with Bruce Arians. I think they got into each other and said, hey, look, we've got to build our defense. And so I like the idea of getting Anthony Nelson in the 4th round. I think he's a solid defensive end, and he was a part of that was Iowa's strength last season, was their dominating defensive line. And if you can get a piece of that puzzle and put it on this with Gerald McCoy, with JPP, with Vita Vea, I think you're building a strong front 7 for Tampa.
All right, well, that was the Iowa and Iowa State players drafted. Did we miss any Nebraska ones, Jake?
Yeah, we've already mentioned that no Nebraska players were drafted. I think it's a mistake.
For the first time in over 50 years, there was not a Nebraska player drafted.
The only thing that surprises me about this is I thought that Stanley Morgan would have ended somewhere. I think Stanley Morgan consistently, even through the regime changes, I think was a very solid wide receiver, and I'm even surprised that he wasn't, an undrafted free agent or something like that. I just don't agree with him not getting drafted. I thought he would have been a good 3rd or 4th rounder, but I just hope he can land on his feet. I think that's really the only one I would have thought drafted. I like Devine Ozigbo, but I just didn't see him there, unfortunately. So they're going to change, though. We got Scott Frost kids, and they're going to get drafted.
So in 4 years?
Well, yeah.
3 years?
A couple years.
All right,
Adrian Martinez will probably leave as a junior.
There were undrafted Iowa and Iowa State players that are at camps right now, such as Matt Eaton, receiver from Iowa State. We'll do the Iowa State players first. Wide receiver Matt Eaton got a deal already with the Packers. And I'm not going to say that I love this, but it's necessary because the Packers receiving corps needed definite help. They have Alan Lazard on roster for this upcoming season, and that might have played a part in this. But I don't see him playing a lot. I don't see him in 4 receiver sets. We'll see if he makes a 53-man roster. Moving on, there's Brian Peavy, cornerback, is at rookie camp in Arizona. Now, most of these are just rookie camps if they don't have deals.
Mm-hmm.
Willie Harvey, the linebacker, is at rookie camps. He'll be at Jacksonville and Cleveland. I could see him sticking with one of those teams. More than Peavy, more than Eaton. But here's the really cool one. Kyle Kemp is going to rookie camp in New Orleans. And I think that there is a real shot for Kyle Kemp to be on New Orleans' roster for this fall. And here's why. They're overpaying Teddy Bridgewater to be a backup.
Who's the other guy they have that plays a bunch of positions?
Oh, Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill.
Yeah. Taysom Hill is so cool. Super awesome. But he's utilized not as a quarterback, and I would think if it's up to me, if my 3 quarterbacks are 38 years old, a 26-year-old Tim Tebow, and
Tim Tebow. He is. I would agree. So yeah, that's why I brought up Taysom Hill, because Taysom Hill is an emergency backup. I mean, he was drafted as a quarterback, but he plays running back. He plays receiver. He's a slash player, So I understand where you're coming from with Kyle Kemp, but here's the problem with Kyle Kemp. He hasn't played a game since September.
But that's a good thing, though. I think that he's a guy that would definitely – he's a humble guy. He accepted his role when he got beat out by a freshman. And I think that he would sit and learn and take a minimum contract, which is what the Saints need for a backup guy, because Bridgewater's injury prone. Taysom Hill is not a 30 attempt a game guy. I mean, I'll stick by that. He's not a quarterback. He's a wildcat. He's a
wildcat.
He's what they should have done with Tebow.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think Kyle Kemp has a serious chance to be the number 3 quarterback, number 4, depending on what you consider Hill, in New Orleans. But then also, Mike Warren, running back, is going to rookie camp in Cincinnati. Man, he really just kind of fell off the depth chart once Montgomery came into his own.
Yeah, I'm Mike Warren. Who?
That was also he had an electric freshman season. He's a quick little devil, but he has injury problems, and he was just too small to compete with Montgomery as a starting back position. But I definitely see him possibly latching on here in Cincinnati, because they kind of like that lightning and thunder aspect when it comes to running backs, Bernard and Jeremy Hill. And I see him definitely as kind of that the role of the lightning running back, where he can catch passes out of the backfield and do kick returns and be number 40 on your roster. I could definitely see him sticking with the roster, even though he didn't have that much success in college. And finally, Sam Sonbucker.
What a name.
I know, right? Iowa State's fullback. He's going to rookie camps in Buffalo and Green Bay. 2 cold weather places that like a fullback. I could see him sticking somewhere, too.
Yeah, I think the fullback position is... we all know it's getting close to being extinct.
Oh, it's dead. It's gone.
It is extinct.
It is based on the coach in the offensive scheme. If you even have one on your roster, there's like 5 teams that will consistently have a fullback on the roster.
And if he can catch some passes, I think that's the best way he'll be utilized. Is an underneath threat, maybe
like John Kuhn.
Yeah, something like that. And he's talking to the Packers, and the Packers have utilized Kuhn very well over the years, so I could see him filling that kind of role.
Right. Well, there's some Iowa players, too, and these are mostly deals that they've already signed as undrafted free agents. Nick Easley, the receiver, signed a deal with Buffalo. Ross Reynolds, offensive lineman, with San Francisco. Now, this one's really cool. Matt Nelson was a defensive lineman at Iowa who is being called a project offensive lineman with Detroit. This is what the Lions do. They draft guys out of position and say, we want you here, and try to move them like they did with Ziggy Ansah. And this is why their defense has not had an identity or any major component besides the cornerback, Darius Slay, has been their only good defensive player since Sue left. And now they're trying to move defensive linemen to offensive line.
That's not...
This is the hospice of Matt Stafford.
I don't understand the logic behind doing that, because it's not... They're 2 different philosophies.
Absolutely.
You can't try...
But Iowa is Lineman University, another one. Keegan Render, offensive lineman. That's 3 offensive linemen if you count Matt Nelson. Render's going to Philadelphia, and then Parker Hesse, 4-year starting defensive lineman for Iowa. He's going to rookie camp with Kansas City and Detroit, and I hope that he gets a spot on a 53-man roster. I'll cheer for Parker Hesse.
I think it would be wise of Kansas City to try to sign him because, they just I can't think of his name, but they just traded a defensive player, and they got rid of Houston, who was a very good defensive lineman for them. So I think they're going to be more into getting younger blood as a defensive end or defensive lineman. And, with Detroit, who knows what they're going to do. They'll probably try and convert him to offensive lineman. So none of these are super surprising. This is a Big Ten West team. So they're going to have big uglies that are going to be successful in the NFL. And, I'm not surprised that some of them have already signed deals because, they're going to be your workhorses for your team. Nick Easley, not really surprised he was undrafted free agent, but I am surprised he already signed a deal. Figured he'd be a guy that kind of they shop around before they.
Well, the Bills aren't the best run franchise. But something I've noticed
I'm not going there to freeze my ass off.
Yeah.
3-13.
Another Iowa defensive back was drafted. And they are the lineman university, but are they becoming defensive back university too? Because with Hooker from this year, Josh Jackson, Desmond King, Micah Hyde have all had NFL success early in their career so far. I mean, Jackson, kind of, with the Packers. But he's playing, and he's getting good playing time. But Desmond King is almost a Pro Bowl level player for the Chargers. And Micah Hyde, I was upset that the Packers didn't even offer him another contract. And he got a big contract by the Bills because he's a 5-tool guy. He'll play safety, he'll play slot, and he'll return kicks and punts.
I am surprised by the recent success of Iowa defensive backs. I don't think that you're far off by saying that it is defensive back, DBU, because Amani Hooker was one of the best corners in college football last year. And Josh Jackson as well, he had, didn't he lead the country in interceptions at one point?
Yeah, he did. And I think that's where this becomes a developmental thing, because Jackson was the year after King, and Hooker was there some with Jackson. And these guys are spending 4 years in the program and really elevating their own play and then being nationally recognized. Like Jackson, he had that 3-interception game against Ohio State where he had the OBJ one-handed catch for an interception, and he just took the nation by storm. But I think that it's interesting how we're consistently seeing Iowa's top defensive back be drafted year in and year out now.
I mean, we'll see if this continues. I think for it to be like a full-blown 4 in a row is impressive. But we'll see. I think they are heading in a direction that might be the case where it is DBU, but it's I still think it's more so a lineman school because they're so traditionally a Big Ten West school, and we all know what that means at Big Ten West. It's hard-nosed, punch-in-the-mouth football, and you're not seeing a lot of passing from Big Ten West schools. Even Nebraska with their new spread offense is still run-oriented. It's still run first. I'm not saying what they've done isn't impressive. I think they have been. Their production has been great, and I agree with what you said, being in that program as long as they have. But we'll see. I definitely think if another defensive back rises up this year, and Amani Hooker and Josh Jackson have been, I think it's hard to disagree with that.
Well, let's move from looking at it from a college perspective. Let's go to the pro perspective. Let's look at the local teams first, and then we'll get to the Bucs. We always got to cover the Bucs. But locally, for the Packers, once again, I wish Brandon was here. He'd give me some more insight on this. But this is the second year with Gutekunst. That's how I just say it in my head. Goot. I say Goot. Packers' new GM, second draft. And he's really focused on speed and defense. And that's what the Packers did again. And hopefully it pays off. I think their second pick, the safety that they took late in the first round, was a little bit of a reach. But I like the linebacker that they took right away. And along with our free agent signings on the defensive side of the ball, I think the Packers are going to have a top 10 defense this year. And I think it's time for no more excuses. We're going to be back in the playoffs. We're going to be competing for a Super Bowl. That's if we have a decent receiving core. I mentioned that earlier. But, I mean, if Alan Lazard is your number 3 guy, I'm sorry to one of my favorite college players of all time. That's not what I want as a Packer fan. They need somebody to step up here with Randall Cobb leaving.
Yeah. I am, like I said, I thought that they would go for Noah Fant, and I thought they would lean more into getting Rodgers some offensive weapons, because I agree with you that there's no more excuses at this point. If you it'd be 3 years this year, 3 years in a row that you missed the playoffs.
It's 2 straight misses. Yeah. Last year was basically all because Rodgers missed half of last year.
Right.
And then this year was kind of just wishy-washy. It was kind of a lost year. And so we're getting into the thick of it, you know. So we'll find out. We'll see how they do. Moving on, Vikings. Moving on, Chiefs. Nothing to say about the Vikings.
Yeah, the Vikings.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
There's a distinct possibility that they finish 4th in the division behind the Lions because of how they have anchored themselves with Kirk Cousins' horrible contract. They can't really do anything, and we'll see. But Chiefs, because I don't want to talk about the Vikings. Now, they got ahead of the Tyreek Hill situation. In the second round, they picked up a speed receiver out of Georgia, McCole Hardman, and they're going to get rid of him. They're going to release him, just like they did with Hunt. This is not an organization that messes around with domestic abusers. This is a family-owned organization that is very serious about their public persona. And let's not forget, they had a player shoot himself in their team parking lot like 3 years ago. They are very self-conscious about their image right now. And they will definitely replace Hill. And hopefully Hardman can pick up some of the slack. But this pick for Hardman, it was round 2, pick 56. I really saw that as a possible sleeper pick for Montgomery. I thought there was a chance Montgomery was going to go there because of the Kareem Hunt black hole.
Yeah. I thought that that would have been that would have been the right choice, I think, to help Patrick Mahomes, because, you know, he had a phenomenal season. I think he'll continue to be productive and have a great season this year, but I don't care how good your quarterback is and how much your offense is built to be a West Coast run and shoot kind of offense. You got to give the guy some breaks. You got to give him, you know, his arm's going to fall off. He keeps throwing it 50, 60 times a game.
Right. Well, you just lost a top 5 running back and the most electric pass catcher in the NFL. You lost 2 huge defensive distractions. And I think that if they don't seriously take care of this before the start of the season, Pat Mahomes is going to regress. And he's going to have a sophomore slump because now there's a lot more
year of film.
There's a year of film. Yeah, you always get that. There's a year of film.
Yep.
But he lost his 2 top helpers. I don't really count Kelsey because Hunt did so much more in so many more dimensions for that offense to take the pressure off of Mahomes. Mahomes has to get the ball to Kelsey. So Kelsey is the 3rd most important guy behind Hill and Hunt. Now with them gone, they definitely need to do something or else they're going to regress, and they probably
And they still don't have a defense either.
No, they don't. And they'll lose the division to the Chargers, and I'll make that.
You really think so?
I think, yeah. Mark it down, May 1st. I believe that the Chargers will win the AFC West. And we'll do our division-by-division preview this fall. But the Bears, now we'll get a little more in-depth on the Montgomery pick and what it really means to the Bears. I really like what the Bears did. They only had 5 picks in this draft. Montgomery, that was their first pick, late in the 3rd round. And that's because you got to think of, like, their first 2 rounds were completely dedicated to getting
Trubinsky?
No.
Because I thought the trade was why they... That trade is why they...
Well, it was the... Well, yeah, I think they lost their 2nd round pick because of that, but their 1st rounder went to the Raiders for Khalil Mack.
Oh, yeah, worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it. Seriously, if you Bears fans, if you think of it this way, that if you think of it as you had a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round pick, and you got for those picks Khalil Mack, Trubisky, and David Montgomery, you got to win. That's a win for the draft. And
Especially, when you have the best defensive player in the league right now.
absolutely. He's the closest thing to Lawrence Taylor we have ever seen. And I like what the Bears have done. Montgomery definitely fits their offense. They are a defensive dominant team with a game managing quarterback. And if you've heard me say it before, you know I don't mean that as an insult. You win Super Bowls with game managers. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
Joe Flacco.
Oh, not elite.
No, he's
game
elite.
manager.
He's elite, but that's what you would say.
An elite game manager.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, I will settle for that. But, and then after that, in the 4th round, they drafted Calvin Ridley's little brother, who was called one of the better route runners in the draft because of training that he's had with his older brother. But I see the Bears as definitely moving forward in the right direction, more than the Lions, more than the Vikings. The Bears and the Packers competing for the division title. It's the way it's supposed to be. I have a healthy respect for the Bears that makes me excited to see how
that means you're scared.
I wouldn't say scared, but I respect the Bears organization, and I'm excited when the Bears are good.
Well, yeah, it's only going to make the division better. It's going to make your team better.
It's first game of the year. 100th anniversary of the NFL, and the first game of the year is Packers at Soldier Field. Yeah. What is more perfect?
You have two very historic franchises.
We'll see where he goes for the Bears. As I said, I think they're on the right path.
Yeah, I think so too. I think last year was a step in the right direction, and I think if you're a Bears fan, I think the future is very bright.
I'm going to say this is the best Bears team since 2010 when they won the division and lost to the Packers in the NFC Championship.
Thanks, Jay Cutler.
Yeah. One of the worst, most embarrassing quarterback performances I've ever seen is game where at halftime he's like, yeah, I'm not playing anymore.
He just pouted on the side.
And they were on the 3rd string quarterback by the end of the game because the other guy got knocked out. And Cutler's like, whatever, dude, my elbow hurts, don't put me back in. It was one of the most incredible things I'd ever seen. I was like, can we call the game?
He was like a moody teenager. It was the
he
weirdest
still
thing.
is. He is to this day. And that's why I love him. All right, we did the local teams. Jake, tell us how the Bucs did.
I think if I were to grade the Buccaneers overall, I would give them a B- if I were to give them a grade. I think they clearly had a focus on defense, and as I mentioned that earlier, I like that approach because I think other than their quarterback situation with Jameis, who I've not been a fan of since 2016. After that year, I was like, I don't buy the hype. But that's just really. I think the choice to get, first of all, the fact that they got Todd Bowles, I think was a really good move because Todd Bowles, as I said, very good coordinator. Not a great head coach, but a very good coordinator. And I think the decision to go after a guy like Devin White, 5th pick in the draft, an extremely fast linebacker.
Good pick.
This dude is crazy good. And
pick.
I think it's a really good pick because
he's a defensive anchor guy.
Yeah.
He holds down the middle.
He's going to give a lot of help to Levante David, who Levante David is getting older. I mean, he's been in the league for, this will be, I think, his 7th season, might be his 8th season. It's going to give him a lot of help, and especially because they just let go Quan Alexander, which I think is funny, former LSU running back or linebacker. Now they get another LSU linebacker, but they really love those Southern players. They really love the Southeast SEC players. They really do. It's either Tampa Bay is populated with LSU players, Florida State players, like all the Southern states. They want to get those guys. Devin White, I think, is a very good pick, and following that up with Sean Bunting and Jamel Dean and Mike Edwards, 3 defensive backs in a row, which the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that has been their Achilles heel for years. They just cannot get it together with the secondary. And, you could argue they're young. I mean, they got Hargraves from Florida back in 2016, who had a solid rookie year, but they're getting rid of Brent Grimes, who clearly doesn't want to be there. They got a rookie there, or a second-year guy from A&M there. I just can't think of his name. I think there's good picks. And then again, I mean, when you look at their picks, they only drafted one offensive player, and that was the Scott Miller that I mentioned before, who's going to fill the Adam Humphries role of the smaller slot guy because they have Mike Evans, and they don't have Deshaun Jackson anymore, but he wasn't really that much of an effect to their offense when he was there. I say a B-. It could have very easily been an A if they had picked up Hakeem Butler. And the only reason I say that is Mike Evans is great, but he's their only deep threat right now. And if you had a guy like Hakeem Butler to back up Mike Evans, and you have those two very big, tall receivers, and then you could throw, and we know how much Jameis loves to throw the deep ball. Not super accurate, but he loves to throw the deep ball. I think that would have added another layer to their offense. But, getting guys like Anthony Nelson and Mike Edwards and all these other defensive players, and especially Devin White, I think it's a push in the right direction because when Tampa Bay has been successful, it has been because of their defense. They've never been a flashy offensive team. Their DNA has always been the Tampa 2 strong defense. Now, that's obviously fallen off since John Gruden left. And here's the one pick that really irritates me. And look, I don't know anything about Matt Gay. I don't have any sort of film on this guy. But I hate the fact that Tampa drafted a kicker again because Tampa is cursed. They can't ever since
you should never draft a kicker or punter, in my opinion.
Never. Sign him undrafted. Get him a deal. There's no reason to waste a pick. At least they learned and waited till the 5th round to do something stupid like that. But I'm sure he's probably a good kicker, but
we can revisit this in a few years and see what starters and what Pro Bowlers got picked after him.
Well, then watch him miss consistently easy field goals like Roberto Aguayo, the most accurate kicker in college football history. He comes to Tampa Bay and he just sucks it up. It's the curse of Martin Gramatica.
I think it's the weather. But realistically, do you see the Buccaneers finishing anything but 4th in their division?
Yes, I see them. I don't have any confidence in the Falcons, and I think the Saints and the Panthers. Who knows who you're going to get with the Panthers? Panthers are really inconsistent.
Oh, they're a wild card. Panthers are a wild card.
The following year after going to the Super Bowl, they go 6-10.
Have you seen that picture of Christian McCaffrey that came out this week? Oh my gosh, he looks like Shrek.
He's huge.
He is unnatural. His arms don't look real.
He's juicing.
He's huge.
He's got to be juicing.
He's the Great White Hope. That's what he is.
Well, it's just funny because that picture comes out, and then I want to say I saw a tweet about it. They saw that picture, but then they remember they tweeted Devin White, or they drafted Devin White, and they're like, challenge accepted. I'm like, oh, could you imagine those two trucks running into each other? Like, that's exciting. I think Tampa, if they can build these young guys and mold them in the right direction with Todd Bowles, I could easily see Tampa Bay competing for the NFC South. But they got to do it quickly because I don't know how many years are left with Bruce Arians or how much longer he's going to want to coach before he pulls a Brett Favre.
And retires again.
Speaking of Brett Favre, how about Marshawn Lynch?
Oh, yeah.
Did you see what he said today?
He'll come back if the Raiders want him. Well, if I'm Gruden, I'm like, hey, I want that guy.
Either you're retired or not, Marshawn.
For the second time. He is the Favre of this decade. Really is. Well, let's jump around to a few other sports. Hockey playoffs. Jake, how's that going? Because I haven't been watching.
Well, Paul, if you're already on this RSS feed and you're on lineopinion.com, you can listen to the hockey show I do with Brent Pentecost. The puck drops here. New episode will be coming up the same time as this. What I will say, it is the craziest playoffs I've ever seen of any sport because all 4 division winners lost in the first round.
That's crazy.
Both number ones lost. The Washington Capitals, defending champions, Washington Capitals lost in the first round in a wild Game 7. The craziest game of the first round, and I think, who knows, because the Stanley Cup playoffs are just so much fun to watch, but the craziest playoff game, hockey game I've ever watched. There was a 5-minute major penalty against the Vegas Golden Knights. And in that 5-minute span, keep in mind they were up 3-0 in the third period. In that 5-minute span, the San Jose Sharks scored 4 goals.
Oh my goodness.
And then Vegas scores in under a minute, like 30 seconds. They score to tie it at 4 to go to overtime. And then the overtime is just like a lame goal. There's just a scrum of guys and he just lays it in there. One of the most bizarre, crazy things I've ever seen. So there's so much parity in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's so much fun to watch. The Columbus Blue Jackets, who ripped my heart out and stomped on it, they are currently winning. As we record this, they're winning their series, and who knows what's going to happen? But it's pretty exciting.
Cool. Well, we'll move on to baseball, and you know how much I love to talk baseball. But there is something this week that really did grab me personally.
Yes. What's this?
And it's the Cubs with Addison Russell. So there's been domestic violence allegations, and he's coming back to the team after his suspension. And you know how I don't really read into anything baseball. It's just so boring to me. Yeah. But this actually made me angry because there's a reporter that has come out that said the Cubs threatened him as an organization, said that he needed to stop putting Russell in a negative light in his recent stories, or there would be consequences. And they have been sending links and notifications to local beat reporters saying, hey, look at the community service he's doing this week. Hey, he was in the children's hospital, things like that.
And they've been like have they been showing this? There's like actual evidence of this?
Of them saying that you need to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's
But there's evidence of him like, oh, look at the good things.
There is concrete evidence of them reaching out to multiple organizations saying, why aren't you covering the good things he's doing right now? And at least one reporter came forward and said they have questions against me if I made another article with him sounding as the bad guy. And as someone who is taking journalism courses for college and works at a radio station, that pissed me off because you are trying to control the narrative, and it's the same thing that our political system does on both sides. Is why are you looking at the negative? Just look at the positive. When the role of the journalist is to bring that stuff to light. Right. We are to show the people what you are doing behind closed doors. We are not your propaganda. Unless the only way that this would be acceptable to me is if it is a reporter employed by the Cubs in their PR. Since it is not, this is completely reprehensible and a very bad look for the Cubs trying to control media members.
Yeah, it's very ridiculous. That to me is heinous in a way because as you mentioned with politics, like people are so negative towards media members, and God forbid they actually want to be journalists and hold somebody accountable, and especially if it's something as serious as what he's accused of doing, he should be held accountable for that. And nobody has.
You got to deal with everything that comes with you, man. You have to lie in the bed that you made. You have to deal with the consequences of your actions.
And as an organization, you have to look inside yourself and figure out what you want to do with this guy. You have nobody to blame but him.
Chiefs would have cut him. Chiefs would have cut him the next day.
Hey, by the way, I'm surprised by that because Tyreek was cleared. He was not guilty.
Yeah, but there's a difference between, like, the NFL can still move forward with whatever it wants despite criminal findings. Like, you can be found not guilty and still be fined. Yeah. Like is probably what is going to happen with Robert Kraft is he's going to have no legal repercussions because he's a billionaire, but he will have league repercussions because there's 29 other old white guys in Shad Khan it's
his son now.
Yeah, that want Robert Kraft to be taken down a notch. But that's all our baseball talk, and we even had baseball talk devolve into football talk because we don't even care.
It ties into everything.
It does. But now to the big four final sport, the NBA playoffs. Full swing now. We're past the first round. We're in the thick of it. Great series. Let's start in the East. The Celtics and the Bucs both crushed their competition, and now they're tied 1-1. Celtics had a big game 1. Bucs had a big response in game 2.
I'd like to point out that you thought yesterday, and granted this is Wednesday, May 1st when we're recording this, but you thought yesterday that the Bucs were going to get swept.
I was feeling it. I was listening to Paul Pierce on ESPN. But I still
I'm also
think,
a guy that said the Blazers were going to get swept. So take what I say with a grain of
yeah,
salt.
we'll get to that. I still don't see a way that the Celtics lose this series based on talent. But I'm I shouldn't say surprised. I respect what Budenholzer did with his adjustments to take a little bit of the focus off of Giannis and bring in more of the exterior guys. Like Chris Middleton killed us last night, man. And that is how the Celtics lost the game. Because the Bucs made great between-game adjustments. And the Celtics were just playing the same game. But they did what they needed to do. They won one game in Milwaukee and evened it up. And now they go to Boston. And Kyrie said this is why they traded for me. After they lost, he said this is what I'm here for. This is playoff basketball. I love that.
I agree with you on a lot of things here because I am someone that believes in the Celtics. I still think that the Celtics are going to be in the finals. I was also someone that said tread lightly when it came to the Bucs because the Bucs have been so good all year that to just, I don't know, man. Maybe it was a little bit of your fanboy showing, but when you were just trying to dismiss them the other day and say it was going to be a sweep, I was like, I don't know about that.
I'll be surprised if it goes 6 games. If they win 2, I'll be surprised.
You think this is their only chance?
Oh, yeah.
This was it.
That's it.
You come at the king, you better not miss.
They won't.
All right, that's an interesting take. I don't agree with you, but
we'll see.
6 games, I can see. I would say maybe. So you think 5 though?
I think Celtics win in 5. Yeah,
I would agree with that.
Yeah. All right, now the other East. If I'm being unbiased, this is probably the most entertaining series because you got Drake on the court side telling them to get the F out of Toronto to the Sixers when they lose game 1.
Oh boy, this is another thing where I can't. You have clouded my judgment. Okay, because I can't not think of the Sixers and think of all the trash talk you've been doing throughout the season.
They are trash.
And we both said that it's not a rivalry. They're not rivals with the Celtics. It might say that
because they don't win.
Exactly. It might say that on paper, but it's not really.
If one team doesn't win, it's not a rivalry. And Embiid said that this year. He said it's not a rivalry because we can't beat them. And so that's why I want the Sixers to win this series.
No, I want them to win as well because I'd love to see the Sixers and the Celtics go at it. But
that would be so much fun. It would be so physical.
Part of me also wants to see Toronto win because at this point there's no more excuses for Toronto. There's no more LeBronto. He's in the West. He's not even in the East.
There's no more excuses for Kyle Lowry.
Exactly.
What it is.
Exactly.
And Kyle Lowry is pooping a goose egg in this playoffs. He's playing horribly. He tried to dribble between Ben Simmons' legs with like 10 seconds to go. He is not playing well. It is showing that it is DeRozan that was leading that team beforehand. Shout out, Brandon, you were wrong. And Kawhi is doing a great job of picking up the slack, but I don't see Toronto winning this series because
you just want to see him.
Who do you go to if the shots aren't falling? Siakam? It's just compared to Harris, Butler, Embiid, you have these guys that the Sixers can go to the next guy. Way better than Toronto can go to the next guy if they need to.
Which is, again, surprising because you have Kyle Lowry, you have Kawhi Leonard, and
Marc Gasol.
All these guys, and they're still struggling. And that's not to say that, the Sixers aren't a good team. I never said that. But it is surprising that, the Raptors are struggling at this point because, I've talked about this a lot when it comes to sports. And this is the problem you run into with sports is no matter how hard you fight it, you have an identity, and it's always going to follow you. And unless the Raptors can beat the Sixers here, they're going to have that identity that they're never going to get. They're never going to be a champion because they always fall apart in the playoffs.
This is their ceiling.
Yeah,
Kawhi is going to leave this summer. Lowry's locked up with the money, and this is their ceiling, and they're going to start regressing. We're going to see Toronto start regressing here. For at least the foreseeable future. That kind of sucks because their head coach is from Carroll, Iowa. I like cheering for Nick Nurse. And, I was a huge DeRozan fan. Like, he was my favorite player in the league for years. But the Raptors are going to start regressing, and I would be surprised if they get to the second round next year.
Yeah,
I would be surprised if they get there.
That's my big takeaway is there's no excuses, man. LeBron's gone.
Yeah, and there's other East teams that are making the moves they need to make to be more competitive next year. Next year, I think the Nets are a better team than the Raptors. Oh yeah, the Nets are young, they're competitive, they're the Clippers of the East, and they're going to be fighting.
The Clippers of the East.
Yes,
huh?
I like that. Actually, I just thought that up right now, and I really like that.
Look at that quote.
The Clippers of the East, they're hardworking guys that fight for every bucket. They know they're not getting a good draft pick because the Celtics highway robbery in 2013. They're still getting their picks. But yeah, I don't see Toronto winning the series. I see the Sixers moving on.
Do you see the Raptors winning another game?
Yes. Yeah, I think this is going to be an exciting series, but I
could see, I don't know, I could see 6 maybe.
The most clutch person in this series, I'm gonna have people that disagree with me because Kawhi Leonard is a Finals MVP, but Jimmy Butler is the most clutch player in the series. Jimmy Butler's gonna want the ball at the end of the deciding game. He's gonna put up the shot. And that's why I think the Sixers are going to win. Because you know what Kyle Lowry did at the end of the game? He tried to dribble between Ben Simmons' legs.
You're not going to let him go.
Oh, my gosh. It was horrible.
It's not as bad as JR, though.
No, it's not as bad as JR.
We had a ton
we don't talk about that. That and Chris Webber are the two moments where I just feel so bad for that guy. Those are the two moments in basketball history where I'm just like, oh, somebody put a towel over that boy's head and tell him it's going to be okay.
Oh, baby, what is you doing?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. JR, we love you. Oh, okay, so moving to the West, Warriors are up 2 on the Rockets. Man, I wanted this to be a little more competitive.
Yeah, well, this is something that's interesting because I watched Game 1 on Sunday, and it was extremely competitive. And it was in Oracle. It's so hard to beat Golden State, let alone beat them in Oracle. And
do you know there's only one team from the Eastern Conference that has won the last 3 seasons in Oracle Arena?
The Celtics.
The Celtics.
Yeah, figured. So yeah, the Game 1 was super competitive, but I think because from what I saw, Houston, and you see this a lot with Golden State, I think Houston put all of their energy, all their effort into that first game, and they came up short. It was a very competitive, close game. I think they lost by 5. It was a very close game throughout, and I think that kind of affected the Rockets now.
What do you think of since you were watching, what do you think of the drama with the argument of closing out on a 3-point shooter and giving him space to land? Do you think that the Warriors are trying to get their feet under Harden and Paul when they go up for 3s? Because that's what Harden was talking about after Game 1. He said that he just wants a fair chance. He wants fouls to be called, which I think is so hypocritical. He gets the most fouls called out of anyone.
Right. Like, a guy like Harden gets all the calls.
In the regular season, he had over 100 3-pointers that he was fouled on. The next guy had like 40-something.
Yeah. I don't know. From what I saw, me personally, I didn't see that, but given Golden State's history with refs, especially this season, it's hard to imagine them getting the calls going their way.
Both of these teams have ref problems.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to see it that way because honestly, from what I saw, it didn't seem like that, and to me, it seemed like Harden, which as you say, that makes me laugh. I think Harden was being a bit of a sore loser there because I didn't see anything that could have, and I could be completely wrong.
I agree with you that I think that he's not thinking about the calls that he does get because he is the most call-favored player in the NBA, in my opinion. But I think this series is over.
No, I think so too.
I
think the Warriors sweep
out of all 4 of these, Harden just got his eyes messed up. Did you see that? Yeah, that was my nasty. Gosh. He looked like no officer. It's hi, how are you?
Yeah.
It looked bad. Both of his eyes.
Looked like he was token on the court.
Exactly. Yeah, he looked like the 04 Pistons. That's what he looked like.
Yeah.
You ever hear that story that like a reporter said that like he could smell it from outside the locker room and he thought they were smoking up at halftime?
That's amazing. Game 1, from what I saw, like I said, that's why I think the series is over as well. I think the Rockets put everything they had, came this close, but, I make that joke earlier. You come at the king, you better not miss. And
they gave what they had and they missed.
And when you're playing a team like Golden State, you cannot make mistakes. You cannot, you can't. You got to do it. You got to play mistake free.
Well,
and I just think
Kevin Durant is playing the best basketball of his career. He is otherworldly. He is making the conversation that if he goes somewhere after this season and leads another team to a championship, his legacy could seriously pass LeBron's in the future.
I don't know.
Why not?
Because he joined the best team in basketball.
Okay, but if he does that, look, LeBron,
they were already going to be a dynasty without him.
LeBron joined All-Stars and couldn't win a ring before that.
Joining a 47-win team compared to joining a 73-win team is not the same. It's not the same, Paul.
I'm gonna give you a blind test.
But if Kevin Durant were to do what you said, it would be hard to argue.
How about this? One of those two players made it to one finals, lost that finals, and then joined a team that had already won a finals and has a finals MVP on the roster and other All-Stars.
A future Hall of Famer.
That's actually both of them. That's LeBron and Kevin Durant. They both did that.
And they both are playing with future Hall of Famer. They're played with future Hall of Famers.
Yeah, well, Wade was a Finals MVP and a champion, and Bosch was an All-Star. It's the same thing, and look, I think Durant's hated on a little too much.
I agree. Honestly, I agree with that too, because the modern era NBA is all about super teams. It's all about building super teams, and you can't. I joke about this. I jokingly say this. You can't knock the hustle, man. If I were in KD's shoes, I would have done the same thing.
Did you go to a Weezer concert recently?
Yeah, I did. About a little over a month ago. It's a fun phrase.
Oh man, I had one other thing to say about that. I can't think of it.
I think I agree with you. I think everything went into game 1 and the Rockets would get swept.
Well, what's funny about the super team era? This is what I was going to say. The super team era was brought to us because of a super team that was put together, not because of the players. People think LeBron started the super team stuff when he chose to go to Miami. Well, why did he choose to go to Miami? Is because he couldn't get past the Celtics that Danny Ainge put together by trading for Kevin Garnett and then getting Ray Allen.
Yeah, I would say it started in 08.
Absolutely. That Celtics team is what started. There's always been super teams. The Lakers with Shaq and Kobe were kind of a super team, but they were also more constructed, like the Celtics were with Rick Fox, Fisher, Kobe. It's a draft.
You could argue that with the Bulls, with Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Michael Jordan.
Right, and that's draft based.
Right.
We're in a
that wasn't just taking someone.
We're in a player empowerment era where now the players are picking their super team, and it's cool. But it was started because of the Celtics.
Which is why you've always said that the NBA is the most millennial sport, because it's all about the players, and they're all about,
absolutely,
hey, this is what I want, give me this.
The NBA is the league of millennials in terms of fans and players.
I'm not against it. I like it.
Well, we've talked about 3 of these matchups so far. You know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's Dame time. It's Lillard time. Oh my God.
I can tell you the exact moment when he drains that 3 from almost half court, which is so silly because it was a tie game. He could have just dribbled it out, and he takes a shot.
Why would you? What? No, take the big money shot, baby.
He needs a 3. He couldn't pass it to somebody, and they could have just scored
run a pick and roll with 8 seconds to go. Fundamental basketball.
Win it that way. Be boring. No, I'm gonna shoot a
hero ball.
3.
Hero ball. And then Paul George said it was a bad shot. Russell Westbrook's teammate said that was a bad shot.
The story into that too. By the way, I'm a moron because I picked against them, and I think
we were both wrong on this.
And I think it is because this is a different Portland team than we're used to seeing, because we are used to seeing a team that would fight and claw to get into the playoffs because they play in a very competitive West, and they still do. But we're so used to seeing them as 8 seeds and getting swept by the Warriors. And now that they're a 3 seed and they're playing at a different level than what they have been before. And that shot was, oh boy, that
Yeah,
was.
Dame and CJ McCollum are definitely playing at a higher level. Have you seen the Snapchat video of Damian Lillard's sister?
No.
Oh my gosh, you need to look it up because she is literally courtside right in front of it. And she storms the court after the shot. And she's, and her snap's going crazy, but her Snapchat is watching him dribble out like 10 feet in front of her and take the shot. And she follows the shot, and it's really cool. But there's also the video you can see Seth Curry over in the corner just waiting, and he tells the Oklahoma City bench, Dame's sending you home. He tells, you can look at, they have video where you see he turns and talks to the Oklahoma bench, and he said, you're going home. Dame's ending it right here. That's legit.
The wave goodbye.
The wave
Cold-blooded.
goodbye.
Cold-blooded.
But it's Dame. That's who he is. And we just don't watch a lot of Blazer basketball here.
Oh, yeah, the West Coast.
But he's one of those Bulldog players, hyper competitive. I played at Weber State. I have the chip on my shoulder. I am going to beat you. I'm an Oakland kid that plays hard and rough and trash talks.
And his face, the straight look on his face into the camera.
Oh, the meme of him in the dog pile, and he lifts his face up, and it's iconic.
I'm sorry, but how can you hate on that level of confidence? How can you hate on somebody just being like, goodbye? Like that's what makes watching the NBA fun, is seeing players cocking it. And the fact that he's just like, you're going home. Yeah. Like, it's just...
That's why we're the Millennial League.
Right.
You should hear how people yell in my rec league.
And the best part about all this is earlier in the game, during a free throw, I think it was Dame doing the free throw, Russell Westbrook, to his face, says, I've been beating that ass for years, and then cut to the end where he just shoots it and waves bye-bye. Like, perfect.
And it's team basketball versus hero ball, and I get that was a hero ball shot, but it shows Westbrook's not going to work, and Paul George should not have stayed in Oklahoma City because now this is their ceiling. They're not better than Houston.
And what have people been saying for years? What have we been saying on this show? Russell Westbrook and guys like him and James Harden, who care so much about their regular season stats and the records and everything, they can't win championships.
Their usage is too high for them to win a championship. I believe that. I've called into Fox Sports radio and told that to Rob Parker. I was on the radio saying Westbrook and Harden will never win championships because of their usage.
They won't.
And he thought I was
crazy.
If
Westbrook can't win with KD, one of the best players of the generation.
Well, that was a different point of their careers. I mean, Harden disappeared in that final series against
I'm just saying,
the Heat.
I'm even saying after Harden left, when they had opportunities, when they were in the final, or they had,
they were up 3-1 on Golden State.
They couldn't do it. They had KD and Westbrook, and they couldn't do it.
Well, I think that's what made Durant leave Westbrook.
Absolutely.
Was that series.
Because you know what he saw? He's like, those guys can win.
Right.
And they were down 3-1, and they can do it. And
but moving on to the second round matchup for the Nuggets. By the way, we were both wrong picking Spurs over the Nuggets too.
Yeah, it shows you how smart we are.
Yeah, I bet on Popovich, and that was a really weird sequence that they don't foul. And they let him dribble out the clock. They let the Nuggets dribble out the clock. It was very, very weird.
Yeah.
And Aldridge just must not have heard the whole bench saying foul. It was a very weird sequence to end that series. One other thing about Dame before we jump into this Blazers Nuggets. There have been 5 series-ending game-winning shots in NBA playoff history. 5. Dame has 2.
He's got ice water in his veins.
You got to double that man when the shot clock's off.
Ice water.
You got to double that man from the logo. Logo Lillard is his name.
That shot was unreal.
And that was awesome. And now they're moving on. They're down 0-1 to the Nuggets. Game 2's in process right now as we're recording. Man, we were super wrong about both of these first-round matchups. But it's okay because this is a cool matchup. I really see Rockets-Warriors as the de facto Western Conference Finals, though. I don't see either of these teams beating either of those teams, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that...
Nuggets are fun, high-scoring, they move the ball.
Yeah.
But no.
I think... We were just talking about this. I think that the Blazers are not the same Blazers that we're used to. Clearly, I'm an idiot. So they're playing at a different level. And even though they're down 0-1, I still think the Blazers are going to win this series. And, you just talked about it. Dame is going to be clutch, and he will find ways to make this team win. He's carried this franchise for how long now? And I think he's going to keep doing it. And, yes, he has some help with C.J. McCollum, but I think they're going to rebound here. And I think it's going to be Blazers-Warriors for the West. That being said, I still think the Warriors would probably... I don't want to say sweep, because when I say that, I come out completely wrong.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be Blazers-Warriors, too. The Blazers have definitely had a bullseye on the Warriors for the past 2 seasons. They've had some very physical regular season and playoff matchups, and I think it was last summer. Yeah, it was before this season. KD was on CJ McCollum's podcast, and McCollum is saying, bro, like, it's not cool that you, like, broke the NBA. You and Boogie went there, and it's just, like, not fair. And Durant's like, I don't care. Like, beat me or join me. Like, whatever, bro. I didn't make it not fair. I made my decision. You make your decisions. But it shows that the Blazers almost have a personal vendetta against this Warriors team because you have 2 Lehigh and Weber State are where your guards went to college, and now they're all-stars, and they play like they went to those colleges.
Right.
And they've looked up at Goliath their whole careers and their whole lives in basketball, and now they have a chance to actually beat the real Goliath. And I think that the Blazers really want that, and that could be a much more exciting series.
If the Blazers were to beat the Golden State Warriors and go to the finals, and have the Warriors not be in the finals for the first time, and this will be the 5th straight season if they do it. To have them do that, could you imagine the hatred and animosity that would come out of that? And I agree with you. I think because Portland has been put in a situation where if the Warriors didn't exist, Portland would be consistent. How do I say this? I don't say they would be the Warriors. I don't think they'd be a dynasty. But I think they would consistently be in the final champion, hanging around the championship.
It would be them and the Rockets as the top 2 seeds.
Right, and they wouldn't be getting eliminated in the first round like they have been the last few years. And I think, I can see that there's true animosity. And I hope the Blazers get to the finals and play the Warriors, because then you got the Currys playing against each other. You got Dame going against Steph Curry. KD and, CJ McCollum. Like, all this stuff, the writing is there for the Hollywood movie. We just got to get these teams there. And I agree with you. I think that Portland has a legit hatred of Golden State because they feel like...
I don't know if I'd say hatred, but definitely...
You don't think it's a rivalry?
I don't... Well, no, because one team's got to win. Both teams have to win for Joel Embiid.
Yes, we know.
Both teams have to win for it to be a rivalry.
Sure.
I would say a desire, a want, a belief that we can beat these guys and we want to play these guys. Not a hatred. Like, I hate the Vikings. I want the Bears to be good because I want to beat a good Bears team. I think that's the difference.
I think, the Blazers are fighting for respect.
Yes, definitely. They're absolutely fighting for respect. They feel that they are the Rodney Dangerfield of the Western Conference.
You and I picked against them. You
Absolutely.
and I both said...
Exactly. We're doing exactly what they want us to do, though. They want to prove us wrong, just like they want to prove us wrong about the Warriors.
So, but here's the thing. If the Blazers get to the Western Conference Championship, and they say they do beat Golden State, do you think... I think they might lose the championship.
Oh, Blazers?
Lose the finals, because all of their energy would go into beating Golden State, and somebody like, the Celtics could beat them.
Yes. Honestly, oh man, it's hard because the Rockets, I can't say this about the Rockets, but if the Blazers would beat the Warriors, they would lose to the East winner. Whether it's Toronto, if it's any of these 4 East teams, any of these 4
even the
East
Sixers.
Teams, I think any of these 4, well, no, actually, no, thank you, because not the Sixers, well, maybe the Sixers, because the Sixers
got to get there first.
Sixers have weak guard play compared to the Blazers, but they have much superior post play, so it depends on how you play the series, because Joel Embiid could knock around Nurkic like it's nothing, man. And so we'll see. But, we're really putting the cart before the horse. And until they are dethroned, the Warriors are the champs. They are the team to beat. But we'll see. Now, Blazers are currently up by 10 in the second half, or in the second quarter. But a little more NBA talk. Did you hear? Did you hear this update on Magic Johnson?
Oh man.
Oh my goodness! I can't figure out
How-
if this is deliberate or not.
How? Again, we've said this before. You work at one of the biggest sports franchises in the entire planet, and you get caught talking trash.
I would say
How does that happen?
It is the third most visible sports team in North America behind the Cowboys and the Yankees. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, it's probably the most one of the most recognized brands.
It is the biggest NBA brand by far.
Oh, for sure.
And for the people that don't know what we're talking about, it came out this week that it seems Magic quit because he was being blind CC'd on emails between Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss saying how bad he was at his job. They were sending him emails saying that he sucked.
How do you not know how to work email in 2019?
I think it is. I think it was like a basic protocol thing to CC him on her.
Right.
Like she'd had this
It's
set
probably
up.
automatic.
She'd had this set up for years with when her brother had Magic's job, and then it just like she forgot to X out that send to the CC when she and Pelinka were talking about him, or this was her passive-aggressive way of saying to him, maybe you're just not cut out for it.
Part of me thinks the first time is an accident, and then after that, they're just like, screw it.
Is there a point where they see his name on these emails?
And they just
at the
keep
top?
doing it.
Like we see these. I get an email from our boss at work.
It's everybody
and then I
else.
can see sent to, there's like somebody else's name +9.
Yeah, right.
And I can see all the names that this went to.
I honestly think after the first one, she's like, you know what? He sucks, and I want him to see it, and maybe he'll just give up after this.
Like there's one that there's a letter that goes to Rob that says, I'm really upset with how Magic handled the Anthony Davis situation. And then she sees Rob Pelinka +1. She goes, oh, who else did this send to? And it says Magic go CC'd Irvin Magic Johnson. And she goes, you know what? That's okay. I want him to know.
He needs to know he's screwed up.
And so then I think that was the point where from that, now his quote where he said, I ain't gonna be here, makes so much more sense because he's being sent emails saying that he's bad at his job. And then he's in a meeting with these people talking about what their plan is for next year. And he's just sitting there saying, screw you guys, y'all hate me and I ain't gonna stick around.
I don't, if that's... If what we're speculating is true, I do not blame him for leaving. At all.
Yeah, we're going to put up a few Twitter polls after this episode airs for you guys, so check it out over the next week. One of them is going to be, did Jeannie Buss intentionally send these to Magic?
I feel like she did.
I
honestly did.
love it. And
I think after the first one, she was just like, screw it. Let him see it. Let him know how bad he is.
well, same sport, different level. Move back down to college. Some local college basketball news to go over before we're out of here. Notre Dame transfer DJ Harvey has narrowed his list to 2, Iowa and Vanderbilt. I don't know much about this kid, but I was losing Macy Daly, a few other guards, and this is where we need Brandon. I hope Iowa gets this kid because I think he'd be a very good pickup for the program.
Why would you want that? Why would you want that from me?
Oh, it's not my conference.
I know, but it isn't mine. Why would you want that?
Well, in my conference, Taylor Horton-Tucker has been invited to the NBA Combine. That's actually a pretty big deal because they only invite as many draft picks as there are. Mm-hmm. There's only 60 guys that get invited to the Combine, and that really helps him trying to be a first-round pick because he's still 18.
Yeah.
He's not going to be 19 until November.
And it was still surprising to both of us that he was leaving early.
Yeah, and now that it's come out that he is going to get an agent and he has been invited to the Combine, I see him as between pick 20 and 30. He's going to be a last 10 of the first round. He's going to go based on potential because you're getting an 18-year-old. Mm-hmm. And if you get an 18-year-old in the first round, it's not a second-round contract where you stash him. So you send him to the D League for 2 years, or the G League for 2 years.
Yeah, develop him for a couple of years.
Exactly. And so he's actually probably going to be playing in Des Moines, playing against the Wolves.
Ooh.
Next year, and we'll see that. We've seen a few local players come back and make the G League circuit. But yeah, I think he's going to be drafted. I was a little surprised at the combine invite because he was a freshman, but he was a very highly recruited freshman.
Yeah,
and
didn't really have the numbers that would
he
leap
was
out at me to say NBA.
Well, honestly, he wasn't trusted by Prom. He sat most of the second half in their final game, or in their NCAA tournament game against Ohio State, and in the close Kansas State game of the Big 12 tournament. He's sitting because Lindell Wigginton is 6th man of the year in the conference, and he's in at the end of the game. Prom trusted Wigginton to know his place in the offense more than Horton Tucker, and I think that really speaks to you, knowing Wigginton's personality. But we'll see. I'm excited for him. I hope he gets drafted because that means better things for Iowa State. A one and done from Iowa State, that's huge for the program in the long run, honestly.
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head that Iowa State's had in the last few
Royce
years.
White, but he was a transfer, so he was he had 1 year at Iowa State. He played 1 year of college basketball, but transferred technically after, or went pro technically after his sophomore year. And news that I didn't have time to put on this, Royce White's actually trying out to be in the Big 3 League tonight. He's going for a pro basketball comeback, and good for him, man.
That's still a league is still around.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I like it's Ice Cube's league.
Yeah, I actually caught myself last summer working overnights, watching reruns of the games from like 2 to 4 in the morning. And so I'm watching 3-on-3 NBA games that went on at like 9 o'clock that night, and I'm watching them at 2 in the morning. And it was actually super fun because they're the names that when I fell in love with the NBA, those are the names that I'm watching, like Iverson and Al Harrington and people like that. The post Jordan era of the kids the players from like 98 to 2010. I love those guys.
It's super weird because it's the scoring's different and it's only half court.
And there's a 4-point shot.
Yeah.
There's like a 4-point circle. Yeah, the rules are a little weird, but it should be fun.
Hey, they survived. Why can't they? Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a different story with basketball and football.
I'm looking into the AAF. I'm going to see what happened. I'm going to dive into it and dissect it.
I partially want the Carolina Hurricanes in the NHL to lose because that guy ruined the AAF.
I want them to bankrupt.
It wasn't his fault, but
No, it definitely was his fault. He pulled the plug.
yeah, but
He said, "I'm taking the rest of my money and going home."
yeah, because he wanted the app.
It's their fault.
He wanted their app.
It's their fault that they didn't have funding or emergency or, in case of emergency, break glass kind of thing.
Yeah.
They weren't ready, and they depended on one guy, and it really comes down to it's the organization's fault as a whole. But I do put some blame on him because he had to know what he was getting into, and maybe he knew he was going to do this, and that's really frustrating.
That's a whole 3 for 3.
That's a topic for
That's
a different
coming
day.
this summer.
I am doing research and doing a deep dive, and I will have a story for my website. Plug at cornfedmedia.org. You can actually check out my latest article from this week on DMAC's version of Kyler Murray. Because, Jake, did you know that DMAC has a 2-sport starter?
No.
Yeah, very good
But I
athlete.
did see that article. I'll have to read it.
Yeah. So you can find it at cornfedmedia.org.
I will actually be contributing to that site as well.
Yes, and hopefully Brandon will be here in the near future. We'll be doing some off-season college football
You
stuff.
should get excited because I'm excited. It's going to be a fun article. It's going to be why it is the most exciting time to be a Husker fan.
I love it. Any other plugs? We talked about the hockey post.
Yeah. Until the end of the season, Puck Drops here will be on this very RSS feed. Brandon and Paul aren't even into hockey really, but Brent Pentecost knows more than I do. He's probably the most knowledgeable person I know about hockey, and that usually posts on Tuesday. It'll post on Thursday. It'll post the same time this does, and we're gonna keep doing that until the end of the season, and then when next season rolls around, we'll try and do that again. It's gonna be something to have during the middle of the week. Or it's going to be something where we can't record, but we'll still give you something. So, because we know you miss us and you love hearing our voices. So we got to give you something.
All right. Well, along with playoff hockey, we'll be watching playoff basketball. And we'll be watching some NFL offseason antics. And by next week, we'll have found another sports drama story or two for you. We'll have another Magic Johnson update. Or we'll know what's going on with Tyreek Hill and for...
Maybe we'll get to watch Robert Kraft's tape.
Maybe we will not.
Who wants to watch that?
I would not. For Jake Williams, I'm Paul Rubidoux signing off for Loud Sports, and we'll see you guys next week.